Fellow auto detailers, welcome to the show that features interviews with today's most successful auto detailers. This is the Auto Detailing Podcast. Here's your host, Jimbo Balaam.
This week's sponsor for the Auto Detailing Podcast is Google AdWords for the modern auto detailing business at autodetailingpodcast.com/Google. If you're looking to take your business to the next level, or maybe you're just starting your detailing business and your website doesn't quite rank high enough in a Google search for keywords like auto detailing and the such like, you're going to want to head over to autodetailingpodcast.com/Google. Because I'm going to show you exactly how to get your site to rank higher in Google searching, how to put, honestly, hundreds, if not thousands of dollars in your pocket every single month in addition to what you're already making. And it doesn't have to cost a lot of money to do paid advertising. For as little as $40, one student made over $1,000. How about, do you have $3 extra per day that you could be using for advertising expense? With $3 a day, I had another student net over $1,300 one month. That means he spent maybe $90 in ad spend for the whole month and made $1,300. I think that's an investment that we would all make. So head on over to autodetailingpodcast.com/Google. Get that training done today and seriously take your business to the next level. That's autodetailingpodcast.com/Google. We'll see you on the inside. All right, welcome to another episode of the Auto Detailing Podcast. I'm Jimbo, your host, and today on the show we have Grant Hawtree, 32 years old, from New Zealand. He's a workshop manager at Final Touch Paint Repair Technologies for the past 10 years, but has been detailing professionally for over 17 years. He started working on cars at the age of 13, and at 15 got a job working at a Porsche dealership, which, Grant, I want to really get into.
Yeah, sure.
And wanting to expand his detailing knowledge, he started working with Final Touch in 2006. And the rest is eat, sleep, and detail repeat. I like that. So, Grant, welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time.
Oh, absolute pleasure, Jim. Absolute pleasure.
And you guys are celebrating today, right, after your win? Did you guys win?
Yeah,
you did.
Yeah, look, to be honest, it was fairly quiet until sort of the final whistle went off and fireworks went off, and I ended up going down and sort of checking out around town, and it's the quietest I've ever seen it around town. Very quiet. A lot of people are either sort of drunk or they've gone back to bed. What
time was the game played at, your time?
It was broadcast live on TV at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
So kickoff was at 5. So
wow.
It was 80 minutes, and people started celebrating about sort of 6:30 in the morning. Oh. They started cracking champagne, and believe it or not, people were at bars at 5 o'clock this morning. The government put through a special license so people could be at bars watching it. If you go on the NZ Herald website, you'll see lots of crazy stuff of people celebrating all around the country. It was just nuts.
Well, congratulations to New Zealand. And the team's called the All Blacks, right?
That's correct.
Which is super funny because I would never fly in the States. And in fact, the first time I saw that team, has nothing to do with detailing, but the first time I saw that team, I'm like, what is this? Is this, because right now in the States we're dealing with a lot of, the media is portraying a lot of hate crimes and racism and stuff like that. So it was kind of funny to me to see this team called the All Blacks, but whatever. So anyway, back to detailing. Why don't you give us a little brief bio about how you got into detailing, kind of where did that initial spark come from? When was that first time you really realized that you wanted to clean cars?
Well, my brother was actually a qualified spray painter, and you sort of spend a lot of summers hanging out with my brother. We sort of shared the same interests, and one day he left college. Well, essentially our college is a bit different to your guys' college. He left sort of high school pretty early, and he sort of ended up buying his first project at 15. There's only a couple of years difference between the two of us, and he brought it home and was like, "Hey, dude, what are you up to?" And I'm like, "Not much. Do you want to come out and come help me?" And, before you know it, at 13, there I was in the driveway, middle of summer, sanding down a 1971 Toyota Corolla SR Coupe.
Wow.
So, and then I was sort of a bit of a straight A engineering student at school. Wanted to go work for the Navy, turning out prop shafts on engineering lathes.
Wow.
But I had a bit of a tragedy where my dad kind of got sick when I was around sort of 14, 15. And unfortunately, he passed away. So I had to draw the short straw and leave school and look after him during his sort of final time. But
wow.
I managed to get a part-time job detailing at a local sort of Nissan dealership. And then I sort of got on okay there. Didn't find the layout was all that great. It was very unorganized because there was too many departments under one small roof. And then my brother managed to get me an interview at our local Porsche dealership over in the central business district. And lo and behold, I got the job. Spent quite a lot of time cutting my teeth there, learning different things, because we had multiple brands under one roof. But I was sort of designated to the Audi and Porsche department and got to work on a lot of Porsches and a lot of sort of late model Audis, and it was lots and lots of fun. And then I ended up shifting probably about 45 minutes out of town to sort of Auckland's North Shore, and then worked at another European dealership there which specialised in Audis and Volkswagens. Sorry, not Audis and Volkswagens, Volkswagens and Peugeots. Worked there for a bit, and then ran a few other detailing companies for some other people that I knew. And then I had an opportunity to get on board with the company I'm with now, and I sort of saw what they did. I knew what they did, but just hadn't experienced that up close. And then I jumped on board in 2006, and I just made my way and just sort of went, wow, I can actually go somewhere with this. And after sort of learning about the technology and the techniques, I actually became really pretty good at it. I'm not one to toot my own horn, but I actually sort of started to really enjoy it. And lo and behold, 10 years later, I'm sort of the assistant workshop manager now. So
wow.
It's been great learning some of the stuff we do through work. We specialize in stone chip repairs.
Okay.
We sort of have a special technique that we have that sets us apart from pretty much most other places. A lot of body shops don't like what we do because they feel it's taking business away from them. But our core business focus has been dealerships for the company's been in business 23 years.
Wow. So
I think it's 23 years. Yeah, the company started in 93, so it's 23 years. And I've just sort of made my way to the top, being quite humble about it. I haven't sort of tooted my own horn towards it, but I've really thoroughly enjoyed it.
So tell us about Final Touch. What you just touched on it briefly, but kind of give us a basic rundown about that company and kind of what drew you to them. You had mentioned kind of the seems like the growth opportunities were a biggie, but tell us that, and then if you can tell us what makes the chip repairs. That's, to me, in the States, obviously we have a totally different market, I'm assuming, but that's a very interesting niche to be in. And so I'm kind of interested by that as well.
Yeah, sure. Like, I felt limited when working at dealerships because a lot of the dealerships over here are essentially run by the accountants. And it's very, very difficult to get the proper tools and the proper technology.
I guess the same could be said here. Run by the accountants.
It's frustrating because your skills end up becoming very limited, and you sort of almost become very drone-ish when working there, and you just feel like, man, I could be doing so much more, and I could be doing this and that, and you don't feel betrayed by the dealership. You just get frustrated because you could offer so much more, but they're not willing to make the investment. And I started seeing these Final Touch vans pop up around a few of the places that I worked at, and I remember my boss, there was one car he was working on when I worked at the Volkswagen and Peugeot dealership. I think it might have been like a red Golf or something like that. But I saw him pull out this airbrush, and I was just like, "What the heck is that guy doing?" You know, I was polishing a car inside, and I sort of knew about them, took a look at it from a distance, and then when I shifted off to another European dealership where I started with Final Touch, I got to see it up close and how it all worked. And the great thing is we eye match all the paint. So whereas with computer matched paint, the computer doesn't put into the factor, hey, you know, this Volvo S80 or whatever has been sitting outside for the last 4 years,
right,
and doesn't know there's paint fade or whatever. So we eye match all the paint. We cut and polish the car essentially. Then we prep sole out the front, and then we have an airbrush, and we have specialist paint that we spray into the chip, and then we have a specialized formula that what happens is it wipes away the residue from around the chip, just not the paint out of the chip. So we basically end up with like a whole spider effect across the hood, where we essentially just go from chip to chip to chip with an airbrush. You know, we're only putting out like 12 or 13 psi with the airbrush, so we're not blowing paint anywhere. It's just mainly focusing on the bonnet, guards, front bumper, A-pillars and mirrors, and sometimes the red dog legs that tend to get chipped up on our lovely roads. And yeah, it's just a formula that's worked for the last 20 plus years that dealerships like, because for what we charge, and you know, to get a front end blown out on, say, like a Holden Commodore sized car, which is probably an SS sort of Caprice, what you guys would have back in the States, is around anywhere between, at a dealer rate, around $800 to about $1,500 to have the entire front end painted out, which is a big chunk taken out of the dealership's pocket. So they get someone like us, and we go in, we do what we do to a car, let's just say with on average, say 80 to 100,000 Ks on the clock, and you know, we charge them around sort of $250 plus tax, and it just saves them a whole bunch of money. So you take the car from sort of a 20-footer down to like a 3-footer, and that's and that's how the system works. It's just, I found it very fascinating, and it drew my attention, and I got to use the skills that I couldn't use at the dealerships, and that's what got me addicted to working for Final Touch.
You know, that's awesome. And have you ever heard of, and if you use this just in a airbrush thing, which I think is a great idea, but have you ever heard of Dr. Color Chip?
Our system is based very much around Dr. Color Chip. I have seen it before.
Okay.
I
know they don't talk about airbrushing into the chips, but after hearing that, it seemed brilliant. But I just caught on because they have the same thing where you could actually fill the chip in and then wipe away the residue or the excess. What I found out in doing it is that I was getting calls. The market's not that hot around where I am for that. No. As far as the retail arena is concerned, I guess. I'm not too sure about the dealers. After I did a few retail jobs, I was completely over it because I got called out for these cars that were just wasted, you know, but I could see how if you're actually airbrushing it, that could be a lot better. I like that.
Yeah, I've seen how the Dr. Color Chip system works, and it uses quite a lot of paint, but when you think about putting it through an airbrush through a small compressor, it's just great. The spray is what we call the patented sort of spray and wipe technique, and it saves you so much time. And I totally get what you're saying, where you get those cars that have been like an ex-lease rental car or a fleet car that a guy's travelled up and down the country, because a lot of our roads are asphalt and tar seal. And, you know, we can drive 3 or 4 hours and be in a different part of the country, whereas you drive probably in your part of the country and you've only gone like maybe 1 or 2 counties over. Air travel for us is quite expensive, so people tend to drive their cars a lot more. Okay. Like a simple trip to, say, Auckland to Wellington could cost you, $400 or $500, which is
flight.
Yeah, seriously.
Okay. How many miles or about how many kilometers apart would those be, for reference?
To give you an idea, it's roughly about a 10-hour drive.
Okay.
So Auckland and Wellington's not that far. It's
Okay.
probably like a 2-hour journey by plane, but
Okay.
it's just, put it this way, it's cheaper for us to fly from New Zealand to Australia than what it is to fly from Auckland to Wellington, to our capital city. And
Jeez.
that's why people just go, well, hang on, my SS Commodore uses $250 worth of gas.
Right.
I might as well just drive to that place, do my business, and then just drive back.
Right.
And you just get all that open road tar seal. Like, none of our roads are concrete, like in LA or in Japan. They're all tar seal. So a lot of our cars get, you'd swear someone stands in front of them with a 12-gauge shotgun and just just obliterates the front, and then we just end up with that ex-lease car or a rep car that's done 150,000 Ks, but it looks more like 350,000 Ks, and you're just like, why am I doing this again?
So is it just like pothole central too?
Yeah, there is a few nasty potholes. I get frustrated because my R32 GTR, I'm like, really precious of it.
Yeah.
It's just, I get frustrated.
That's great. So, but that's awesome that Final Touch has carved out a niche for that, and I could see why the other body shops would hate that. But they just hate it.
With a passion. Like, some body shops love what we do. A lot of our body shops are mainly about insurance work. They'll charge a premium price for, say, a cut and polish and maybe like a pencil touch of some stone chips across the front, because for what that square meter space is costing them, they've got, a $6,500 or a $7,500 insurance job sitting out in the car park, and they just get the shop apprentice to do this customer's car and then charge a premium on it just so they can get it in and out as quick as possible, because the cost is just, the overheads are so expensive. Whereas a small/large business like us, we can be, a car for us can take anything up to a couple of hours, start to finish.
Okay.
And it's not just like a quick wax or whatever. We're doing pretty hefty paint correction in a short period of time. It's roughly about 2 guys to a car.
Okay.
So it just seems that we've got it, so it works quite well with dealerships. And a lot of our stuff is wholesale work, but we're getting more and more into the retail side of things, especially me personally, because I get on really well one-to-one with the general public, and you kind of get to pick up what they're kind of after in that, after that sort of 15-20 minute conversation.
It's interesting. I've been trying to incorporate paintless dent repair into my detailing business.
Yeah, I see that.
Because I get it. I just get asked all the time. All the time. And it was finally one of those things where you're just like hitting your hand against your head saying like, why haven't I done this sooner? I'm leaving so much money on the table. The interesting difference that I picked up on with the paintless dent repair industry versus the detailing industry, at least in my local area, is that the majority of the work for a PDR tech will be dealerships versus retail.
That's right.
And kind of in thinking about that and kind of pondering upon why that is, I guess they claim steady workflow, but really what I think it is what you just mentioned, is that the techs are too afraid to hone their communication and sales skills or selling ability, because that's really the difference, I would think, between retail and wholesale, is that, look, a dealership needs to get the car in as best shape as they possibly can for as cheap as they possibly can.
That's
so
right.
There's not much selling that needs to be done, because they just need the car to an okay situation so that they can just flip it, right? Like you said, the accountant's running the show. But when you switch into a retail situation, the customers, you're actually dealing one-on-one with the customer, and their needs are a little bit different. They're a little bit more price conscious, or maybe not price conscious, and all these other factors get into it. And I think guys just simply don't want to deal with that. I could be wrong, but that's my observation.
Dude, you're reading straight out of my head. I swear us detailers have, we're just this is a select few of us that have the same mentality. You're so right. It's like we don't do PDR through, like personally, we don't do PDR through our shop. We have that farmed out by another company.
Sure.
Same with sort of any sort of interior trim repairs. Like if someone comes to us, like for example, not long ago I had a gentleman come up to us with a 2013 Bentley Continental Flying Spur, very large car, very expensive, and he had just up. Car. Oh, it's a lot of real estate,
It is.
20 feet long, 20 feet wide.
You start quoting it out for how long, how many feet it is versus like the car, like an RV. You're like, well, it's actually 15 feet long.
Exactly. As soon as it's past 5 meters, we start charging by by the half meter.
Yeah.
He had just bought the car and he was going out of the country, and the previous owner was, like 3 wheels had been curbed quite heavily. One of the tire walls had been damaged. The previous owner had worn quite a lot of denim on a cream bone white leather interior, so you could just imagine how blue the interior was. And the guy went out of the country for the week, and I organised basically PDR, interior trim repair. We did our part, and I got 3 wheels repaired and a tyre replaced for the gentleman. And I was pretty nervous about giving this guy a bill for quite a substantial amount of money. Well, from our point of view, including tax, the bill was just over $2,000, and I'm like, oh my God. And he was just like, no, that's exactly what I expected. And I was just like, wow. Because
you're like, dang it, I should charge $3,000.
Well, the thing is, a lot of these people, Jimbo, when they buy these cars, they don't come to places like us.
Okay.
They go straight to the dealership. And then they get the dealership to sort it all out, and then the dealership slaps on their 15, 35% or whatever it may be. And then, my boss and I, we talked about it afterwards, and we said, look, because we've done work for the Bentley dealerships and places like that over in the CBD, and we thought to ourselves, man, that bill would have been well and truly $3,000 to $3,500, and we were like, it's a lot to us at $2,000, but
yes,
man, the dealerships are just like, no, that's just the standard rate. And I'd love to be getting more work like that through, because I find it to be a lot more enjoyable, because you're providing, I like to provide the customers with a great experience. I want them to go away happy, and then for them to come back, say 3-6 months later and whatever it may be, and just say, oh, hey, look, can I get you to take a look at my wife's car, or whatever it may be. I love that repeat business with those. With I think of what Joe Fernandez said. He says, his whole thing of, poor people suck, which I totally agree on.
Right.
And he put an analogy of, you want to get a car guy with money,
right? And
that market with the car guy with money is like incredibly small in our country. Like, I reckon out of 100% of the automotive population, I would say that market is probably 10% or less.
Wow.
That's how small of a market. Like, even though we've been in business for 20 plus years, our workshop is only 90 square meters.
Okay.
So that's tiny. It's 2 cars. That's all we can fit.
As you keep talking, I'm gonna square meters in feet. Let me search this real quick for people that aren't that smart. It's just under 1,000 square feet.
Yep, tiny.
Yeah, so that would be in the States. That would be like a starter shop. No, I'm not downplaying the size of your shop, but I'm just saying to give guys a general idea of what kind of a vision of the size shop that would be. It's 968 square feet,
and that's 2-story, 90 square meters. So it's like I said, very small. We fit 2 cars roughly sort of tandem.
Okay. Yeah.
One in the back of the shop, one sort of in the front door, sometimes hanging outside the door with the office and stuff upstairs.
Okay.
And that
cool.
That's lunchroom, that's kitchen, that's bathroom, all in that 90 square meters. That's not separate. That's all on that shop floor.
And how many employees would be working there?
I have 2 guys that work under me that do a fantastic job. I love those guys to bits. There's my boss, obviously. He's at the top of the food chain.
Right.
And we've got another, because we're based out of vans as well.
Okay.
So we are mobile.
Okay.
And we're actually a franchise, so we spread out through the entire country. But,
oh, wow.
My boss owns the Auckland franchise.
Okay.
And he's in partnership with another guy that deals with a with another area which is about 10 minutes down the road from the shop. So he's got his own sort of franchised area. He looks after the Wairau Valley district, and literally he walks to the top of a driveway, and I think he's got, I would say easily half a dozen plus dealerships on his doorstep.
Wow.
That he's within walking distance of the small shop that he's in.
Wow.
And we've got another 2 guys that run around town in vans. They do a lot of stuff for lease companies and other dealerships. I service the area that I generally look after is obviously our workshop, which is really close to me and really important to me. And we look after the Green Lane district, which is just outside the CBD. To give you an idea, the entire area, our Auckland area, is probably, I think I worked it out the other day, it's probably, I would say, 350 square miles.
Wow.
So it's a large area, and that's everything from dealerships to wholesale, retail, and anything else in between. And like I say, we offer multiple packages and deals for people, and just to whatever suits. And we also, like I say, we can get PDR done through the shop. We've also got into the market of plasti dipping.
Okay.
We'll do like blackout packages, or if people want black emblems, we'll get them to come into the workshop, put them in a loan car, and we'll do that kind of stuff as well. So we just want to be like I don't want to say an all-over one-stop shop, because we don't do a lot of mechanical side of things. Mainly we just want to look after people's cars and just keep them looking shiny.
But, it's the same thing that I've run into here. Once you are in with those customers, like you had mentioned, getting the wife's car or whatever, it's you start to become, you start to become that resource for, if Plasti Dip's becoming big and you can offer that service, maybe the customer doesn't want their car detailed, but they want their rims Plasti Dipped or their front grille or whatever. And then you're just capitalizing on, extra dollars. That's
exactly
what it comes down to, So I want to transition into, because this is when you reached out to me, this is what really caught my eye. And then as we started talking about it before we started recording, I want to get into the challenges that you face. And your wording was a third world country. And as we kind of talked about that and unpacked it, obviously you're not living in a third world country when it comes to living, I guess, or your living standards, I guess. But I do get a lot of complaints about guys in Australia and New Zealand about how the technology hasn't caught up down there. So, and you had mentioned that earlier as well. So is it technology as far as like internet technology, or is it product technology, or is it both?
For me, it's definitely a little bit of both, but the one that frustrates me the most is the product technology. It's, you take a big place like Auto Geek, you can walk in there and it's like the Toys R Us of detail supplies. There's just everything in there.
Right.
We don't get the privilege of having a place like that. It's very, very difficult. We've got, like, you go to your local Repco, which is the same as an AutoZone in the States, and you've got 3 major brands up on and it's just like, it's like Maguire's, Turtle Wax, and Mothers. That's it. That's all you see on the shelf. And there's just, those shelves are like 9 foot tall and 20 feet long.
Jeez.
And that's all we have. And to give you an idea, like, for example, training, we actually don't have, I think you guys have got, I think Mike Stoops has the training facility in Irvine, California. Am I right?
Yep.
We don't have places like that.
Right. Well, he'll do that. I think he calls it the Thursday night open garage, where it's totally free. You can literally just walk in and ask any question, do anything you want.
We don't have that privilege. The place that has, there's a large place where we get all of our supplies from, which is based out sort of southeast Auckland, and they just have the distributorship for Maguire's products.
Wow.
So we're predominantly Maguire's products. Like, there's a place in Wellington called Detail Depot, and they're bringing in a lot of chemical guide stuff, but they're not selling it. They're just
is the need not, or not, maybe not the need, but is the is the want not there, or is, like you were talking about the market share earlier, is there not enough interest in it?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
That's I had one guy come to me about a month or so ago. He said, "Hey, look, I want this chemical guy's product and this chemical guy's product," and I was just like, "Why do you need it?" He goes, "Oh, because I'm having all these problems," and it just turned out for him just to be a procedure problem, that he was just throwing literally, I think, 4 or 5 different sealants and coatings on his car, wanting it to stay immaculate all the time outside in an industrial area. And I said, "Dude, you've got to just pull yourself down off that ledge." I said, the only place that's really got this is the detail depot in Wellington. And he was just like, "Oh, well, I want it today." And I'm like, "I can't give it to you. I can't help you." And it's like that distributorship that has the Maguire's brand, they've got a training facility there that I've been to, and I've done some minor bumper repair work there and learned some stuff about another paint brand that we also carry in the shop for doing minor sort of like spot repairs and bumper repairs. And those guys, I have no disrespect towards them, but we end up testing a lot of Maguire's products before they even get it on their shelves, before it's even hit the country. And it's crazy. To give you an example, when did the MT300 come out?
That released at SEMA last year, but I don't think you weren't able to get it for a few months after that. So I'm not exactly sure when, but let's say 2 to 3 months after that is when you could actually get your hands on one.
Okay. It's still not on our shelves.
Oh my gosh. So almost a year after release. Now, I guess the problem is that people may be thinking, well, just order it on the internet and get it shipped down there. But then I'm assuming the shipping costs become just not even worth it.
I had a conversation with Matt Gibb about this very similar.
Do you know Matt?
Yeah,
cool.
I heard him on a couple of your shows, and then I gave him a sort of a look up on Facebook, and we chat regularly, occasionally, just about random stuff. And I've never met him face to face, just over Facebook. But our customs agency only gives us a limit of $400, which is not a lot, considering. To give you an idea, a G110V2 retail is about $400. So if you were to bring something like that over from, say, like we've bought stuff from Auto Geek before, just so we can get our hands on it and try it, because we've been that keen on trying it.
Right.
And man, we just get stung by customs. Whereas take like Matt Gibb, his limit through his customs is like $1,000. So he can go and buy, different pads or a machine or something like that, and not worry about getting hit with tax from customs and duties and things like that. So like I say, when I say we're very limited into that, it makes it very hard. And like I say, the Maguire's distributorship, they've got that market cornered very well down in this country.
So why don't they have the machines yet?
Because they're not a straight out like Maguire's shop, like the ones that Mike Stoops has at Irvine in California.
Okay.
It's actually a distributorship through an AutoZone, if you get my point.
Right. Yep.
I'll just mention the name. The company we get it from is a company called GPI, and they sell multiple brands of products, whether it be masking tape or stuff from 3M, whatever it may be. They supply us with Speed Hacker paint. And the Maguire's distributorship, they've got the rights to sell that, and they've been selling that for a long period of time. But they tend to mainly focus on the stuff that goes on the shelves of your AutoZones or your Repcos or your Super Cheaps, Super Cheap Autos, and or your Kmart or whatever. And that's what they tend to focus on. The stuff that generally comes in the tan bottles, as we all know, is generally the stuff that you and I would probably use, and they don't shift a lot of that stuff. It's mainly companies like us and a few body shops that buy that stuff.
Wow.
We did a concourse day with them. It must be 4 or 5 years ago now. I'd say about 5 or 6, and we were specifically told not to use anything in a tan bottle because they just wanted us to push the retail products, if you get my point. And you and I both know that some of those retail products are slightly different or slightly watered down to what we would use.
Or slightly junk.
Yeah. Like I used to love Scratch X, thought it was amazing, and then they changed the recipe in it, they changed the formula in it, and then Scratch X 2.0, and it was just like, oh, really? This doesn't do what it did. And then I do believe a lot of people complained about it, and they changed back to the old formula, and it's a great little product again. But being in such a small market, because I think we are the last country at the bottom of the world, I do believe. I
think so, yeah.
Geographically,
I guess, unless Antarctica, but I don't think the car care industry is very big down there.
No, not at Scott Base, man. It's pretty small. I can't imagine getting called down there to polish up a snowmobile.
Yeah.
Or a tractor, one of the two. But considering, and I was talking to a buddy of mine earlier on about this, considering that we've had such a great number of racing drivers over history, and at one stage when the Bentley Continental GT came out, we had the highest ownership of GTs in the world per head capita, and it was, you get what I mean. Like, I think we're the third largest importer in the world of Japanese imports, and like we don't have any cars locally made anymore. All of our stuff is imported, including the Ford and Holden stuff, essentially. Like I say, our market is extremely small, and the other thing is it's very hard to work alongside other places that have been setting up. Like, I know you guys have had it for a while, but the detailing trade has now become quite a large fad, where everybody's, the second they get themselves a porter cable and wax their mum and dad's car, they can suddenly go out and start.
It's becoming a problem, yes.
It's irritating because you and I both know those guys don't have insurance. They've generally got no knowledge, and when they end up stuffing up a vehicle, they just pack their tools and they run for the hills.
Exactly.
And it's very frustrating to work alongside those kind of people, guys, because we want to get a network going of, we say, hey, look, sorry, sir, we can't get to your car today. It's such short notice, but we could recommend Joe Smith down the street who does a fantastic job. And,
right.
The trouble is everyone's so DIY in this country. Do it yourself, and they think, oh yeah, I'll just pop down to, once again, Repco or Super Cheap, spend $100 on a rotary polisher, go home, hack the living daylights out of their car, and they go, yeah, I'm quite chuffed with that. And then they realised, oh wow, I've actually gone and done a whole bunch of damage. Now I've got to pay someone to correct all that damage. It's very, very hard. We don't like paying people to do stuff that we feel we can do ourselves.
Is that across all industries?
Very much so. Like everything from plumbing to building. We're very much a DIY country. Very strong on that sort of front. It's that whole "she'll be right, can do" attitude that we sort of carry. Prime example, I had a guy that had bought a real cheap Toyota Celica for his daughter, and he went to the local gas station and got this compound off the shelf that I swear that was probably full of marbles and God knows what else.
Marbles and sandpaper?
Sandpaper's not gritty enough. Honestly, he started on the bonnet, and by the time he got to, he started on the driver's side of the hood. He did the whole hood, and then by the time he got to the passenger's door, he stopped and stood back. And once all the oils had evaporated, essentially all the silicons and oils had evaporated out of this tinned compound he bought, he had essentially Scotch-Brighted about 90% of the car.
You're like, yeah, we can airbrush that. We can airbrush that out.
It was, honestly, Jim, I could have Scotch-Bright the passenger's door and the passenger's guard, mastered up, and just repainted the whole car.
Oh my gosh.
I'm seriously, I'm talking like it would have been 800 grit or lower, probably 600 to 800 grit scratches through the entire car. It was only a $4,000 car, but he thought he would do it by doing is helping out his daughter because it was a red car and it was bleached and pinked out a little bit. He's like, yeah, well, I'll get in there, and he rubbed it real hard, and because it was one of those compounds that just has no diminishing abrasives in it. It's just sand.
Right.
He just ruined the whole car, and he's like, oh, I've done this to my daughter's car, and I feel really bad. And then he's like, well, what's it going to cost me to fix it? And I say, well, it's going to cost you this much. He's like, oh, gee, really? And I'm like, well, if you would have come to me in the first place, you probably would have spent this much.
Right.
Well, I get so much of that with people, especially through the workshop with the retail customers, is wholesale customers love us because we give them a nice cheap set rate.
Right.
Well, essentially a flat rate of, say, $250-$300 a car. And then we'll just pump those out. The local Toyota dealership, I probably punt out maybe, I think on average about 15 cars a week for them, maybe slightly less, which is great. And because obviously we have targets to make. But you get those retail customers that rock up and go, oh, and I know for a fact they've been to a local body shop and the body shop's going, well, that's going to cost you this much because we have to do this. And they go, oh, well, I don't want to use my insurance. I was hoping it was only going to cost me like, $50 or whatever. And I have those people roll up and they're like, oh, I just want this done. And I'm like, yeah, okay, we can do that. But, 100% to us is a freshly painted panel. The best we're going to get this is 60-70%. And I'm like, shoot up to the road to the local cafe, grab yourself a coffee, come back in 20 minutes, and it'll be done.
Oh, wow.
And it's generally something small that they think, oh God, I can see the metal showing through or the base coat or whatever, and they go to a panel shop, and the panel shop doesn't really want to do it unless it's insurance work. That way they can charge through the roof.
Right.
And that's the other catch-22 is the insurance companies tend to have the body shops with their arms twisting their arms behind their back. Because for a long period of time, body shops were really charging huge amounts, and they were making a lot of money off the insurance companies, which they went, hang on a second, it's not costing this much, why are you charging? And then it's been reversed around, so it becomes very hard for someone to walk in off the street to a body shop and say, hey, can you just touch up this bumper corner? And they're like, well, okay, well, we don't just touch up the bumper corner, we refinish the entire front bumper, and that'll cost you $750. And people are just like, whoa, that's like, my insurance is like $250.
Right.
Then I lose my no claims bonus.
Right.
And then they end up coming to us, and it's literally just a 20-minute fix.
Jeez.
But they come back and they're like, oh, well, it's not 100%. Well, I did say to you that it was only going to be this, and I just get, I get.
Yeah, they want the 100% for the cheap price.
Yeah, and I go back to that podcast you had with Darren Priest about the guy with the Lexus in the underground car park with the etching on the deck lid.
Yep.
And call me crazy, I listened to that podcast like 3 or 4 times because it just resonated with me so hard because I've been through that, and it's very hard for us to get cash from a first-time customer. There's a lot of people that don't like paying. There are some people that go, hey, look, if I pay you cash, can we kind of skip the tax? And that's where I just add the tax on top, and I say, well, that's $300 then. And they're like, but that's, and I say, yeah, we're an honest company. We always have been. And it just resonated with me so much because, God, if I had $1 for every time I've had a customer like that for like the last 10 years, I'd be driving around in a Bentley myself.
So with all those challenges, and it seems very challenging and very frustrating, to be honest, what would you say is one breakthrough product that changed the way you detailed cars forever?
For me personally, and it was one product that we got before the US did, and that's a Bigfoot. Bigfoot LHR 21. I used one for about a year before I saved up enough cash. I went, screw it, I'm buying my own.
Yeah.
Because I don't have many personal tools for detailing because they're very hard or they're very expensive to get.
Yeah.
Bigfoots came out; they were nearly $1,000 for us.
Wow.
There was 7 with the whole kit and the box and the compounds. It was like $760.
Wow.
So I just went, screw it, went and bought one, and it's definitely cut down my paint correction time for doing great stuff.
What were you using before that? Just supporter cable or something?
No, Jim. Rotaries, man.
Rotary.
Just
got it.
Honestly, we got planetary sanders from Rupes, because Rupes is quite a large company over here. Mm-hmm. It's generally the main company, but we use Makitas as well. But everything, generally speaking, was just rotaries.
Wow.
And then the odd planetary sander we got, like very the Rupes planetary sanders we were using were very similar to a Flex.
Okay.
And they were $900.
Wow.
So you have a fleet of, if you have a fleet of, say, at one stage we had about half a dozen vans running across Auckland. You can't have one of those in every van because it just
it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, your budget would be blown out. But since the release of the Bigfoot, sort of 2.5 years ago, almost 3 years ago, that was a huge game changer for us. And it's just made detailing so much more easier. Yeah. Look, I've always enjoyed detailing. There's no doubt about that. God above, I could be detailing quite happily, 6-7 days a week, but I think I'd end up going clinically insane. It's just, it was a huge game changer. It really helped, but on the con side of that, it became easier, as I said before, for someone to pick up one of those from a dealership, have a friend borrow it, and then suddenly do reasonably good paint correction, and then think, I can go out there and then go do all this. And then we had it, because we're quite open to the Chinese market, we had a lot of Zen tools come down, which are half the price of a Bigfoot, and essentially it does the same job. To me, it doesn't feel like the same machine, just doesn't feel as balanced as a Bigfoot. But suddenly people can start doing reasonably good paint correction. It hasn't got to that stage where people are doing amazing paint correction. Like some of the cars that we get, man, ex-rental cars, lease cars that have been through a car wash 10 million times that have just, got straight line scratches on them. A lot of the other sort of, I don't want to say detail shops, because we are a detail shop. I call them car grooming places or car grooming shops, which I think are probably a step down work quality wise from what we offer, because they're more about quantity rather than quality. They tend to just buzz over the cars and get them shiny, and then it makes it easier for a lot of those other guys that don't, like I said to you before, don't have the insurance or anything like that, and they can just suddenly go, yep, I can suddenly be a business out of this, 5 days a week. It doesn't work like that. Our market is so small. There's us and another 2 other companies that are very similar in what we do, but we are still on the top of that pyramid. I'm going to toot my horn when I say that, because we've been in business the longest.
Good for you guys.
It's great for us. A lot of these other guys that are jumping on, like the coatings business is starting to become big over here now. And we've had probably 3 companies set up inside the last, probably I'd say about 4 or 5 companies set up in the last year that have specialized in coatings.
Wow.
And we tend to have a clean green image down here, so I think coatings down here do tend to be sort of over marketed. Like the most expensive one we have on our market is $9,000 for a coating.
Wow.
I can't see someone spending $9,000 on a coating.
No kidding.
On a Toyota Land Cruiser, because they won't throw $9,000 at a coating. Maybe someone like a businessman, maybe with like a very expensive Rolls Royce or something like that, potentially buying it, but
very few and far between.
Yeah, exactly. Very few and far between. And a lot of these companies that are sort of trying to mimic our technology, we've had guys try to copy us in the past and it hasn't worked. But admittedly, the technology was different back then. It was very hard to get hold of, but now it's become a lot more regular and easier to get hold of, and it's making it easier for guys to do, great fancy 50-50 shots and so forth. But admittedly, like I said to you before, those guys that are doing those kind of cars doing that kind of work, they're working on very late model, low mileage cars.
Right. Right.
No more than sort of 10 or 15,000 Ks tops.
Sure.
Or they're doing, a collection that never gets driven.
Right.
We're doing stuff, everything from, well, you've probably seen my Facebook page. I'm doing everything from everyday stuff right up to, I did a chrome wrapped R35 GTR a few days ago for a buddy of mine. Mm-hmm. That was going into a large expo show this weekend.
Wow.
And I don't promote myself outside of work. Everything I try to do, I definitely try to promote through the line of work by saying, hey, look, I work for these guys and this is what came into the shop this week, and I thank my team and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't go around telling everybody that, hey, look, I'm a master detailer or whatever. Yeah, I thought I'd just chuck that in there
just to make sure I'm awake.
Yeah, I saw that and I got frustrated, and I have a sneaky suspicion of that particular person, and I'm a fan of that person, and as you probably know, I'm trying to get that person out this way. I've been emailing him, and I can't see it happening because the market's just too small for us.
Is it going to cost $25,000?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That's in our dollars. In your dollars, I think it was about 15 to 17 grand.
Got it.
And just, I had massive respect for that person until they were on the same path. They had the same mentality. I'm a fan of the work and the people that he looks up to. Like, I'm a huge Kevin Brown fan and a Jason Rose fan. Love those two guys to bits. I think their minds just feel like a proper detailer's mind.
Yeah, I love Jason.
Yeah, and I'm so stoked that he's working for Roots.
Yeah, it's cool.
I think seeing those guys that Jason's gone to the factory in Italy and just gone, wow, look at how I never knew this place was like that. But even though down in little old New Zealand, we're actually aware of what that's all like in Europe. We're aware of the factories are that big, and we know what goes on, and that's what people sort of don't tend to see us like. But I'm frustrated at that situation. I read that sort of Facebook thing, and man, the person got knocked down a little bit on my respect ladder a few runs.
You're not the only one that I've heard from in the past couple weeks about that. So
really,
yeah, it's quite unfortunate. Yeah, that's all I'll say for that, because you're not the first person to the next few years will be interesting, because I was even a little taken back in how many people actually reached out to me and said similar words to what you're saying. So it'll be interesting to see it, if anything. But all I'm saying is, when enough people become fed up, stuff changes.
Yeah, but I'm no master at something like that. I'm very humble because I know where I've come from working in car dealerships to where I am now. Like, you can even ask my boss for the 9-10 years I've worked for him. I've actually never once asked for a pay rise ever. He's just given them to me at random without even telling me, and I'm just like, oh well, can you make sure you split it amongst the other guys that work with me? Because if it wasn't for those guys, I do think of everybody else, not just myself. Right. And I know I can do a damn good finish, but and as I said to you in that Facebook thing, I did mention there's another guy that does have that same particular name in his logo, and there's a few guys I know refer to him as changing the first word from a GL to a T. And it's very frustrating because it's gotten to the point now in our market where there's, like I said, there's that other company where I actually went to their open day earlier on this year, and I went in plain clothes, and they were actually trying to attract my boss, and my boss is no average guy. The guy stands over 6 foot, and drives a big F-150 Lightning, so he's not hard to miss.
Right.
Whereas me, on the other hand, I'm very short, and I blend in quite well. And I went along to these guys and like, and then I sort of asked a few questions, and they were like, wow, this dude's pretty onto it. And then I pulled them aside and told them who I was, and I'm like, yeah, that's cool. And they said, we'd love to work alongside. And then they kind of went down the track of, for example, my boss did a C63 AMG wagon, and then a day later, those guys put up pictures of a black C63 wagon.
Yeah.
And I just thought, okay, pure coincidence. And then things just started happening one after the other, and I just went, man, I hate those guys right now.
I know. It sucks. It's so frustrating.
Just be yourself, man. Just be yourself and just be who you are.
Well, I am a lot less than $15,000 to get me down to New Zealand, so hey, just throwing it out there. Just teasing. Anyway, why don't you, Grant? You've opened my eyes to a lot during our chat, and I'm really fascinated by it actually, and I'd love to talk more about it. But we're kind of running out of time here, so why don't you give our listeners a final parting word of advice? That could be detailing, that could be life, whatever, and then tell us how to connect with you, how we can find you. We do have some listenership in New Zealand, a little bit more in Australia, not gonna lie, but that's okay because you guys won the rugby game today. But if people want to connect with you, get work done at your shop, how can they? Give us all your outlets of how we can connect with you or the shop.
Awesome, Jim. I will say the one thing that stuck to me many years ago was a piece of advice that was stuck on my high school principal's door, which was, the harder I work, the more luck I seem to find. I think that was said by Thomas Jefferson, I think. If not, I read a good thing. If you ever don't know who the quote is by, you can always... Oh, shoot, I lost it. You can always give credit to... Oh, gosh, who was it? Shoot, I lost it. Right when I had it and I lost it. Oh, sorry. Blew that one big time. It was always That's right. You could always give credit to, I can't even think. Benjamin Franklin or I don't know. Who? Anyway. It was... joke fell flat, sorry. Yeah, that's one of my favorite, and that didn't really resonate with me until later on in life. Yeah. I just sort of looked at it on his door on a piece of paper and didn't pay much attention. And the other one was one by John Lennon that said about a subject during World War II, and he said, "Quantity has its own quality."
I like that.
And that's sort of been my two favorite quotes. But hey, if you guys need any sort of work done or you want to check us out on Facebook, Final Touch Paint Repair Technology, definitely the Auckland branch, because we have franchises throughout the country. You guys can reach me on Facebook. Just look up Grant Hawtree. That's Hawtree.
Hawtree, still working on that one.
You'll get it, don't worry. And finaltouch.co.nz. Like I say, we've been in business for 20 plus years. Specialise in interior, exterior detailing, paint correction, our patented stone chip spray and wipe technique. Just Google search Final Touch Paint Repair and you'll find something.
Awesome, Grant. Thanks so much.
No dramas, and it's been a pleasure being on your show.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Auto Detailing Podcast. Head on over to autodetailingpodcast.com for full show notes and links of everything that we've talked about today. And don't forget to check out our resources page for a direct link to all the products talked about not only on today's episode, but that I use in my day-to-day detail business. They have direct links so you can purchase and get free shipping right from that page. That's autodetailingpodcast.com. We'll see you on the next episode.